Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Welcome back. I am your host, Dr. Jacqueline Kaba-Harrison, and welcome back to another episode of the Born to Lead docuseries. If you have been following us all along, you know that I have had some of the most awesome guests that have actually participated in this Born to Lead docuseries. This way, you get an opportunity to take a journey into a different entrepreneur from all sorts of businesses, all sorts of skill sets, and we dive in. They have an opportunity to talk about their business, who they serve, how they serve, and their why behind their business. And we then segue over into talking about leadership. So we talk about just tangible tips and tools that you can take and begin to utilize right away to hone in and fine tune your leadership skills. Whether you're an entrepreneur or whether you are working in a Fortune 500 company or both, right? But the idea is to leave you all with practical tips and tools to be able to be better, more effective leaders. So, before I bring her in, I'm going to tell you a little bit about her. Hopefully, I can pronounce her name correctly. I believe it's Avalaura. Avalaura. We're going to see if I'm right, okay? All right. The internationally acclaimed intuitive consultant and transformational celebrity life coach beckons you to embrace your true self and embark on your extraordinary life journey today. With an unwavering passion for empowering leaders and high achievers to manifest their boldest dreams, she guides those ready to live a life of freedom, shedding limiting beliefs that no longer serve them. She offers a holistic approach, transforming lives, relationships, and businesses. She is a captivating international keynote speaker and podcast creator who's spoken at sold out retreats and for notable organizations over the last 19 years, blending her expertise as a licensed social worker, Reiki master teacher, life coach, TV personality, and holistic mental health expert. She has a bachelor's degree in psychology and a master's degree in social work from Howard University. I'm going to bring her on in. Well, hello there.
Hello, hello. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for that introduction.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I am so honored that you agreed to come on the show and basically, have this conversation and leave us with these different tips and tools that you're going to share with us today.
Absolutely. I look forward to it.
So I know I read your bio.
hmm
Go ahead and just kind of elaborate a little bit more. One question I do want you to answer is what how did all of this come to be?
Mm,
And how
hmm
long have you been in business for yourself?
Yeah, I get that question a lot, and there's a whole story behind it. I don't know whether you want the long version or the short version.
You
I
can
think
give us the
anybody
long
who's an
version.
entrepreneur, there's a story behind it, right? Like,
Hmm. Well, you know what? I like hearing those stories. I mean, to
okay,
me, that's what, because we are our brand, right?
absolutely.
And our story is part of that. So yeah, whatever you feel comfortable sharing, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I tell everybody I have the degrees, I got the certifications, I have all the things, but really my work, my expertise comes from lived experience. I don't tell anybody to do anything that I haven't done or would not do. And so my journey certainly is that. And like you said, I started off sort of in traditional mental health. I got my bachelor's degree in psychology, and master's degree in social work from Howard University. And the goal for all intents and purposes was to be a therapist. That's what I thought that I was going to do. And I was working at an outpatient mental health clinic here in Maryland, in PG County. And I just realized, I was just like, this is not it. Like, this is not what I signed up for. Once you get into the system and you start to see what's happening with mental health, I was just like, this is, I'm a healer. Like, I actually want to help people. And I just realized the system wasn't set up for that. Like, I felt like the system was really just, instead of helping people heal, it was set up to help people to maintain their dysfunction. And that's not what I wanted. And when I realized that I couldn't really help people in the way that they needed help, I started to get depressed. I started to feel very powerless and very stuck. Like, well, what am I here? Why am I here? Like, I worked so hard to get to this point. I got all the degrees. I went to school. I did all the things, and I'm here, and I should be happy, and I hate it. And that was my reality. Really, until I just got sick and tired of being sick and tired. I just couldn't do it anymore. And one of the things that was really interesting is that here I am, I'm a social worker, and I am helping all these other people, and I couldn't help myself. And I didn't have anybody to go to for help because I didn't really trust anybody. Right. And I particularly didn't trust people in the organization that I worked for because it was a very toxic work environment. So I couldn't even go to anybody there and say, hey, this is what I'm struggling with. I need some help. And so it took a while for me to get to that space. And I finally just, ended up confiding in a colleague outside of the organization and just, let her know what was happening. And she said, Avalaura, I'm having a women's retreat. Like, why don't you come on out? And at that time, it sounds funny now, but at that time, that was like a big thing because people weren't doing retreats. You know what I mean? Like, retreats are big now. And I have, I do retreats. I do Reiki retreats. I have one coming up in Morocco in November. But back then, that was like a foreign concept. And so I was just like, you know what, whatever it is, sign me up. Like, if she had said, let's go bungee jumping, I would have gone. So I was at that point in my life where it just, when you really get to that point where things are just so bad, whatever it takes, you'll just do it. And so I went on the retreat, and it ended up being the best thing that I could have done. I think that's really necessary. A lot of times when we're in the midst of the storm, there's so much that we can't see clearly. You know what I mean? And just stepping out of my reality, even just for those few days really helped me to see clearly. And I realized just how unhappy I was. I realized, I was gaining weight. I wasn't laughing anymore. You know what I mean? Like, so many things had changed that I didn't even realize because I was just too busy just trying to survive and just kind of going through the motions of life. But it was a really eye-opening experience. I got back to soulful self-care, as I call it, which is why self-care is so near and dear to my heart. Doing yoga and meditation and just spending time in nature and talking to like-minded women and just really giving myself that woo-sa or that rest, right? That we all talk about now, the rest movement, right? We weren't talking about it back then. It was still a hustle movement. But now, I took some time out and I literally had an emotional breakdown where I just found myself on my hands and knees crying out to God. And I was just like, you got to get me out of here. Like, I can't live like this. This is not what I signed up for. This is not what I worked so hard for. I finally got where I thought I wanted to be, and I am not happy. And I had a moment at this retreat, and I just, boo-hoo, ugly cried, let it all out. And it felt good. I felt like, okay, I feel better. After you have a good cry, after you really get real with yourself, I felt good. And then I realized I had to go back to work on Monday. And I was like, oh, well, I guess it's not over. It's just temporary. But I did. I went back to work, even though I didn't want to go, because I'm a healer and I'm a therapist and I'm supposed to help people. And their, healing matters more than my own. And so I'm gonna put my feelings right on the back burner, and I'm gonna take care of my clients and, the people that I was managing and my colleagues and everything else. And that was the reality. And so I went to work. It was business as usual. And I, get to the office, I'm doing my thing, meeting with my clients. And my boss calls me into his office, and he slides this envelope across the table and he says, Avalaura, you're an amazing person. It's been great having you, but I got to let you go.
Okay.
And I was like, what? Like, what do you mean you got to let me go? Now, we talking about leadership here. Classic overachiever, high achiever, perfectionist. When I do something, I don't do it 100%. I do it 200%. So I could not believe that this man was firing me. No notice, no nothing. No, it's not like there was any write-ups, anything. It was just out the blue. And ego was just kind of going back and forth, pissed off, right? And my spirit kicks in, and it's just like, well, Avalaura, why are you upset? This is what you prayed for. So what are you going to do about it? And, I had to sit there and think about that. Like, what am I going to do? Am I just going to, revise my resume, start looking for another job, right? I mean, here in the DC area, if anybody knows, like, social work jobs are a dime and a dozen. It might not be the job that you want, but you're not going to have a problem getting a job. And so, the thought of that was like, oh God, I don't know if I could do that again. And so, it's like, am I going to do that? Or am I really just going to venture into the path of the unknown and do what I've really been called to do and live in purpose? And obviously I chose the latter, because you probably would not be talking to me today if I had not. I don't know where I would be. And I did something that I really encourage every woman, every leader, especially every Black woman to do. And again, people are doing it now, but back then it was not happening. I took off 6 months, what I call my 6-month healing sabbatical, and I worked on me. That's when I got my own therapy. That's when I studied up to become a life coach, got certified. I became a Reiki master teacher. I just delved into the healing arts and hypnotherapy, aromatherapy, really got into the energy system, chakras, crystals, all the things. And that was a part of my healing journey. And at the end of that 6 months, I opened up my practice and really just became the guide that I needed, understanding that traditional mental health was really failing people. It's not this one size fits all. You can't just go to somebody's office and somebody asks you questions and you answer, and that's healing for you. Like, we are multi-dimensional beings, so we need different approaches. So it was important to me to really study different approaches, to really tap into my own gifts so that I could be a better healer, so that I could really meet people where they were, like we talk about in social work. And however you're coming to me, I can help you because I have different tools to be able to assist with that. And so really, my journey here where I am now started with me having my own, burnout period, my own period where I really just needed a woosah, where I needed time out and understanding what was necessary, what I did, what worked, and what didn't work.
I was sitting here listening to you, and I don't think we hadn't, talked about it, but I'm a licensed clinical social worker.
Okay.
And I'm dating myself here. I've been in the field since, well, considering undergrad, since 94, right?
Mhm.
And I got my graduate degree in 2001.
Mhm.
And just seeing how it has changed
Yeah.
over the years, it's like, I don't know what this is today. I don't know what to say anymore. But as I sit here and I listen to you, And, and this is one of the wonderful things that I like about talking with people and connecting with people, because I work in community mental health,
Mm.
and
Mhm.
I was a therapist.
Mhm.
And it got to be too much. I mean, too much in the sense that everything now is about productivity. Well, how many
Yeah.
people did you see? They want you to turn them out, turn them out,
Listen, that feeling.
you know what I mean? And
Mhm.
they don't care nothing about the quality. They don't, you know what I mean? They don't care if anyone is doing better. They really talk a lot about and emphasize a lot about the numbers.
Yep.
And so I said, okay, I don't want to go find another job. You know, I'm not interested in sending my resume out and going in, answering all these questions and, oh, well, what would you do if blah blah, all this
Yep.
interview business, right? So I said, okay. So I went to the intake department. And I'm finding now that even though I don't have a caseload, it's still
Mhm.
about the numbers. But
Yep.
I'm noticing that it is so heavy. I'm noticing that at the end of the day, I am so drained,
Yeah.
you know, because people are coming in, they're fresh, whether it be substance use,
Yep.
mental health,
Yep.
and oftentimes it's a combination of the both things,
Mhm.
you know, and, people are trauma upon trauma upon trauma, and a host of systemic issues, right?
Yes.
That they're dealing with, that you're sitting there and you're like, I know, I get it, but there's absolutely nothing I can do about it, or I can't even point you in the right direction. I mean, you know what I mean? It used to be like, oh, okay, well, go here and
The different resources.
yes,
Yeah.
but it's like
Mhm.
now it's just like you be like this,
Mhm.
one of them, and
Mhm.
and depending, well, I don't know, let's wait another 3 years, see what the White House gonna do. I mean, I don't know, it's just
Listen.
like, but it's very draining. So like hearing
Yeah.
you talk about that is inspirational, to me, and I'm pretty sure to others that are out there in the field. We went into this field because we wanted to help people.
Mhm.
Is a very high burnout rate. And
Yes.
oftentimes you get in there and you're like, well, what am I really doing? I mean,
Right. Like, what is this?
what am I doing? Other than passing chart audits, what am I doing? So I have to applaud you on that. You didn't allow it to kind of suck the life out of you. You know what I mean?
Mm.
You
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
were able to go to that retreat, and even though you got that envelope. It's like, sorry. You know what I mean? Which is like a blessing in disguise. You
Oh,
know,
listen, that was I'll
yeah.
tell everybody. I know I manifested that. Like
Hmm.
that doesn't just happen. Like how do you get fired and there's no write-ups? There was never in like, oh, Avalaura, you're doing this wrong. You need to work on this. Nothing.
Just out of
Literally,
curiosity, do you know why they let you go? I'm just curious. That's
he
just
never gave a reason.
interesting. Okay.
Never. And
Curious.
and I was so stunned. I guess I
Hmm.
could have asked, but I was so stunned.
Yeah.
I didn't even ask. And then when I realized that, you know what? I didn't want to be there anyway. I didn't even care at that point. I
Right.
was
Right.
over it.
Yeah.
I was on to what am I going to do next?
Yeah. I mean, that's really like divine intervention, and like you said too, that whole cookie cutter
Yeah.
mindset, you know, doesn't work. And being able to have access to those different treatment modalities, because we're everybody is different, and
Hmm.
taking a more holistic approach,
Yep.
you know. And I mean, I would assume
Absolutely.
now, do you deal you service men and women, correct?
I work with men and women, although of course the majority of my clients are women.
Women.
I typically see men when I'm doing like couples coaching, like relationship coaching and things like that. Very few men come on their own. But what I will say is very few men come on their own, but when they do, men tend to stick with me longer
Hmm.
and
Interesting.
consistent.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
It's interesting. Okay. Okay. You know, there's I don't know if this is a lot of what's, you know what, and see, and okay, everybody, for you all that know me, you know that once I get going, I get going. And that's why I like for it to be, you know, conversational, because now this has piqued my interest about something else, just to kind of get, you know, get your take on it. You know, there's a lot of information on the internet, good old
Mhm,
internet, right? About, you know, high value man, high value woman,
mhm,
you know, take time to heal. um what was the other thing I was going to say? Taking time to heal, and oh god, it just escaped me, it'll come to me. But I want to know, oh, I know, this is what it was. I don't know if you've heard of this podcast, but it's called Hardly Initiated.
I haven't.
No, okay.
Mm-mm.
These two young black men, I say young,
Mhm.
probably maybe early 30s,
Okay.
late 20s, early 30s. And they bring on these phenomenal guests. And I think
Mhm.
it typically started out talking about relationships, but for the
Of
most part,
course.
it's about personal development, you know, mental health, everything under that umbrella. And
Mhm.
one of the guests was talking about men, and was saying that you often hear women talking about healing, but you very
Mhm.
rarely, and let's say we're talking about African Americans, okay?
Mhm. Mhm.
But you very rarely hear men talking about healing,
Mhm.
right? So all of that, or put it like this: when you made the comment about, well, I asked you about men and women, you said
Yeah.
mostly women, but the men tend to stick with you.
Yeah.
You know, it kind of brought all of that up for me.
Yeah, I mean, times have changed. Let me say that. And I will say, obviously some for the better, some for the worse. When I first started, again, this was almost 20 years ago now.
Okay.
First started, the majority of my clients were white.
Mm, okay.
Black folks are not messing with this holistic stuff. Reiki is
No,
against my religion.
no,
That's witchcraft. I'm inviting in spirits. All
no.
all this, kind of crazy stuff.
Right.
Um, and fast forward now 20 years later, the majority of my clients now are Black women.
Okay.
There's been a real shift, and that happened a lot because you started having people talk about therapy and the need for it, and your mental health, and self-care, and all these things became buzzwords, and so it shifted, and so that also shifted for men. I
Mm,
mean, definitely there's still less men, right, who are talking about these things, but there has been a shift there too, where men recognize, well, I need self-care as well. I'm a father, right? I'm a husband, I have a business, so I'm a leader of my organization, so I need self-care as well. It might look different than for a woman, but I still need it as well. And so I think that the women kind of spearheaded it, right? Like Black women were like, listen, I'm giving myself permission now to take care of myself. This is normal. This is natural. This is not a, stigma anymore. That then opened up the door for men to say, you know what, this is natural for me as well. So men are kind of coming behind. But like I said, most of the men that I worked with, I could probably, well, no, I can count on both hands. How many men just on their own came.
right.
The others came because in a
Mm.
relationship, and their wife, their girlfriend, or their fiance was like, look at here,
Like, you better
this
get on in that
relationship
therapy.
is not going anywhere until we work out our
Right.
issues.
Yeah.
And that's when the men came.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, why are you here, sir? Because she say I need to be here.
That's it.
Well, I know in the work that I do, I get a lot of men. A lot of times they're court ordered,
Hmm.
you know. But so this is a good segue, talking about self care.
Hmm.
So I know that, you know, this is an area of expertise of yours in particular. So we're gonna let you shine in that area. So segue us over to, let's talk about leadership
Mm.
and mental health, leadership and self care. and like I guess what that looks
Mm.
like. You I mean, start it out at whatever angle you want to start out at, and I'll just chime in.
So we have a great example right now in the White House of what happens when the leader suffers from mental health issues and drastically needs self care. The traumas that they inflict on others, the power that they have to completely disrupt anything and everything, including progress. You're the employee and you're looking at all these things that could happen, and it's like they do the exact opposite, right? We're literally seeing it in action right now. What happens when we have unhealed leaders? And it is extremely important because unlike, if you think about it, when you're dealing with an individual, okay, well, they're just impacting themselves. But when you're dealing with a leader, they're impacting the organization, they're impacting all of the people underneath them. And then those people end up coming to see somebody like me because they're trying to figure out how to deal with this unhealed leader that clearly needs to work on themselves so that there can be a healthy work environment.
Because like you said, like that. What did they say? Everything it starts at the top and it
It
trickles down.
absolutely starts at the top, and hurt people. And I say unhealed
Unhealed.
hurt people, because
Yeah.
everybody's hurt. Let's just be real. If you've been living long enough, you have been hurt by something more than once, right? So it's not about being hurt, but it's about taking the responsibility to heal. So unhealed hurt people will absolutely pass down that hurt to others. And the more people you have in your sphere, the more people you hurt.
Yeah. Mm. And I'm just I'm pretty sure, I have stories, people that are listening, tuning in have stories of working at a particular job and, leaving because of the leadership.
Absolutely. I liked my job, but I didn't like the leadership. I didn't like where the company was going.
Yeah.
I have heard that many times.
Mm-hmm.
You hear it all the time in the school system. I love the kids. You
Right.
know what I mean? I don't even have problems with the parents. It's the administration.
Administration. Yeah, actually, and it's interesting that you said that because I have a friend, a good friend that's a school social worker, and I think she's complained about the parents more so.
Oh, I mean, I'm sure
Right.
that's a thing.
Yeah.
That's a thing.
But yeah, so I mean, it just kind of goes to show you that in order to even effectively lead yourself, you have to stay in tune with your own mental health. So okay, so
Yep. And
staying
and
there.
if you think about it like that, you think about the amount of work that it takes just to be healthy and sane and whole for yourself. Leaders are taking on everything, right, of everybody. So you have to like 10x that. You have to be even better because you are constantly dealing with people, you're constantly dealing with problems. And so, you have to be a pro. You have to be an expert at personal development, at emotional intelligence, at conflict resolution, at boundaries, right? So, all the things you might be kind of playing with and working through, a leader has to be an expert at it to really lead effectively.
To lead effectively, and also too, I guess have good boundaries too, right? Sometimes that was
Boundaries is
that came to
key.
my mind. Yeah, because that's a big part of self care. Is
It's a
having good
huge part
boundaries.
of self-care. People think about, and I always talk about, yeah, the bubble baths and the manicures and pedicures and all of that. But we got to look at like what's really consisting of self-care, and boundaries is huge because it's about what you allow into your life, and it's also about what you don't allow into your life.
That's
And so much of the reason why we're not practicing self-care, right? And we need all these mental health interventions is because we have so many things in our life that we don't need, that we don't know how to let go of. Because this person told me this is how it's supposed to be. Well, this is my family. They might be toxic, but they're my family. What am I supposed to do? There's so many things that we need to get rid of, that we simply can't, that are really kind of distracting us from allowing us to really live our best lives and to really do the things that we want to do. Right. And so boundaries is huge, because it's all about, what's really feeding me, what's important to me, what do I need to do, and how do I make sure that that's done. And yes, I have my family and my friends and my loved ones, but how do I make sure that I take care of me first, so that I am not putting their needs before my own, and now I'm unhealthy and I'm resentful because I'm doing everything for everybody else.
Yep. Yep. It's like a couple of things came up when you started talking about that. And let's see if I can remember them. I'm telling you, this minute, look, I got this menopause brain. Okay.
Oh, listen, I understand.
I spent all day going from one room to the other. What did I come in here for? Where are my glasses at? What did I do with my phone? So y'all forgive me. So it's like hearing you talk about that, it just brought up a couple of things for me. And again, when you talk about self-care, a lot of people do kind of hone in on things like, well, let's go on vacation. Well, and that's part of it, right? Or let me go
It's
get
part
my
of
nails,
it, but
makes you feel good, or buy a nice outfit, stuff like that. And yes, that is part of a big part of self-care. But like you said, something like boundaries, because to me, like when you talk about boundaries, that also brings into making a decision about who gets to have a seat at your table, basically.
absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
that was one of the things for me, because I had a really toxic family, or
Mhm.
have a toxic family. It's not past tense. But being able to navigate that, and
Mhm.
oftentimes when you talk to people about boundaries, especially women, because I think
Mhm.
oftentimes we're like people pleasers, right? I think women tend to pay more attention to what people think we should be doing. Well, my mother thinks
Mhm.
this, and my father said this, and my grandmother thinks I should be doing this. And
Yeah.
so a lot of this people pleasing and what we should be doing and what should make us happy, right?
Mhm.
We we're sitting with all of that, and we're looking at these different relationships, and they may be toxic relationships in this family, or people you've been knowing all your life. So
Yep.
what? You know what I mean?
Yep.
Even more the reason, you know what I mean? And that
Even
is
more.
actually kind of walking people through. I'm sure you do this, walking people
Yes.
through what is a boundary? Why is it important?
Yes.
How do you set a
Yes.
boundary? How do you
And
maintain
all the different types of boundaries,
the different
because we
types?
don't think about that. Like there's physical
Right.
boundaries, there's spiritual boundaries, right? There's emotional boundaries. So
Yeah.
what does that look like? And also, most importantly, how do you violate your own boundaries? Because you set
Right.
the tone for all of your relationships.
That's
So if
right.
you're over here violating your own boundaries, you're inviting other people to violate your boundaries.
You know what? Give me an example. When you say violate your boundaries, give me an example of that.
I can give you a very common, basic example.
Okay.
How many times are you hungry but you've missed a meal?
I'm hungry right now.
Right? Like you're
Or
violating
not
your
getting enough
own
sleep,
boundary,
right? Or not getting enough
or
sleep.
not getting enough sleep,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Basic everyday things that you kind of put on hold for
Mhm.
something else. I need to take care of myself. Oh, I'll do it later because, I got to pick so and so up, or I have to help my child with their homework, right? But so wait a minute. So you're missing out on taking care of yourself. Simple things like not even using the bathroom. Oh, I'll wait. Why are you waiting to use the bathroom?
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? And you're right. That's basic everyday stuff, that you don't even think about. But you're
Don't even think
absolutely
about.
right. You're absolutely right. And even those simple things can be game changers.
Absolutely. It's a very empowering thing when you realize that you can take care of yourself.
Mhm.
When you're letting people walk all over you, when you care more about what other people think than about what you think, you get more depressed because you feel powerless.
Mhm.
But when you actually step up in your own life and recognize you have power, you can say no, you can stick up for yourself, and you can take care of yourself. There is something deeply satisfying and deeply free about that.
That's right. Yes, it is. Yes, it
So
is.
it makes a huge difference.
It really does. It really does. I well, that's kind of going into something else. I'll stick with this, but it's just so many different areas of self-care that I think we need to continue to educate women about, that they just really just don't know, and they haven't been taught it, because our mothers didn't know, our
Exactly.
grandmothers didn't know. They just kept, it was this thing of just go 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 go,
Listen,
put
you
everybody
do
these
it till you die.
right, exactly.
You don't do it till you're tired. You do it till you die.
Right, it's almost like, I'll well I've actually had someone tell me something along the lines of, and I can't remember exactly, but paraphrasing, that now that I have a child, what I want or what I need is not important.
Yeah. Yeah. I've heard that too.
But the thing of it is, it ain't just me.
Yeah.
Women, I'm telling you, every time I sit down and talk to women, that always comes up. The people
Yep.
pleasing, the even though that they do set a boundary and say no, they feel guilty. They
Yep.
allow people to make them feel
Yep.
guilty. All of those things, they just keep coming up, keep coming up. You know what I mean? So it's not just
Yep.
me here in
And
Michigan.
then when your child leaves or these people leave, right? Now you feel empty. You don't even know who you are anymore because your whole life was
Yep,
revolving around them.
yep. You don't
You know,
even
I've
know.
had women going through a divorce. Well, who am I without my husband? Right?
Yep.
Children now empty nesters. Well, what do I do now with my time? I don't have any children.
Hmm. Yep.
And so really having to rediscover themselves all over again because they had lost themselves 20 years ago.
Yep. Yep. Or even just sitting down with women and you ask them, well, what do you do for fun? Or what do you enjoy?
Hmm.
What are your hobbies? And they
I
literally
don't
just
know.
sit there. Right. They have no clue.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, when I teach self-care. I mean, I've taught self-care at like so many organizations, and it's really very similar things. And I actually give a list, and it's only like 30 things. There's more, but it's a list of different ways of practicing self-care. And a lot of them are ways that people hadn't thought about. They're like, wow,
Mhm.
okay. And and it's a real exploration just to go through that list and to see like, what do I like, or what do I even want to do, because I never even thought about this stuff. I'm just kind of doing, going to work, going home, taking care of my family, going to bed, going to work, going home, and rinse and repeat. And
Right.
so it's a
You got
very
to home to
interesting
take care
thing
of that
seeing
man.
people. Right. Yes, it's an interesting thing kind of seeing people do that. Like, wow, okay, I could just take a moment to just, ground myself, take my shoes off and stand in nature and just ground myself and just be.
Sometimes, you know what? Sometimes I even be sitting in the car. Like when I get home,
Oh, that's a lot. Listen, car therapy. You know how many women
you know what?
I used to
It be
talk
a
to in
thing.
their
Car
cars before they
therapy.
got in the house.
Girl, I do car therapy. Because, it's just like I'm leaving the job. I done sat here, listen to people's issues all day long, you know. Then, you get home, and that's another realm. I'm working on my business. I'm dealing with my son, his school, stuff like that.
Hmm.
And it's like I just sit there in the car for a minute, even if I'm listening to a song,
Hmm.
that just makes me feel good, maybe some old school music, sipping the rest of my little bit of water from the day, just whatever, just kind
Yeah.
of, I call it recalibrating,
Hmm.
you know.
Hmm.
But Yeah. So it's just like wherever you can get it in. Sometimes
And this is the thing, and this is what I teach about self-care is that, the first word in self-care is self.
it's self. Yep.
Right? So it has to work for you. Your self-care can't be defined by somebody else. So,
Yep.
what I do, right? And what you do should be totally different things. And that is okay if it works for you.
Yep.
But even with the self-care, we get caught up in, well, I read this article and they said I'm supposed to do this. Well, if that doesn't work for you, don't do that.
That work for you. Yeah. Yep. And and it changes. Like sometimes I'll have
Yeah.
a couple of videos that I watch that is funny. I mean, they just make me just crack up. And if I'm
Mm-hmm.
having just a moment and I just need a good laugh, I can go and pull that video up and I just be laughing like it's the first time I done watched that video. But like
Mm-hmm.
you said, just whatever. I'm a dancer. Sometimes I'll just dance. I'll close the door of my office and just start dancing.
I
You
love
know,
it. I
but
love it.
whatever works for you, that's what works
Yep.
for me.
Is what works for you. And you have to do these things to
Yeah.
find out if they do work for you.
Hmm.
That's a part of the exploration process. And so many of us, we don't even know what works for us because we just haven't done it.
Yeah. 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 So I know we're talking about leadership and we're talking about the importance of self-care and mental health in leadership. And I know we talked a lot about self-care. Anything else you want to add in reference to maybe I guess either self-care or mental health?
Hmm.
I know
Yeah,
you
I mean, for me, they're not one and the same, but they're linked.
okay.
What I practice is holistic mental health. And like I said, understanding that we are multidimensional beings and therefore it can't be a one size fits all approach. And there's going to be different things that work for different people. And self-care is a facet of our mental health. It is the thing that we need to really, one, if we're not good mentally, right, to help us get good mentally, but then two, also to maintain it once we are in that space where we're good mentally. Because again, we're living every single day that we're living, we need to be practicing self-care. Self-care just can't be a thing of, oh, I'm having a bad day, let me do some self-care.
Right.
Self-care is an everyday practice. Every single day, you need to be practicing self care. Every single day, because really what self care does is a barrier, right? When things go wrong, because they will. When you get stressed out, because you will. When there's problems, because there will. You have self care to be that barrier so you don't freak out, so you don't go to 10, so you're not on your last nerves, right? So you can deal with whatever it is in a healthy way because you're good. When you're not good, that's when you like, oh, y'all getting on my nerves. You know what I mean? Or,
Mhm.
all these different things. It's like you don't have the capacity to deal with it because you haven't taken care of yourself.
Yeah.
So self-care allows you to have that barrier so you can have healthy mental health, that whatever comes up in life, you're able to deal with it. Doesn't mean that you like it. It just means that you can deal with it because you have the state of mind, you have the wherewithal to do it. Whereas when you're emotionally compromised, if something happens, you just can't deal. You've seen people, they just walk away. You like, what they doing? They can't handle it,
Right.
right? Or dang, they just ghosted me. I can't deal with conflict resolution, so
Right.
I'm gonna just not talk to you,
Yeah.
right? So that's what happens when you're not taking care of yourself. You don't have the ability to deal with whatever comes up in life.
Right. To have the bandwidth to deal with and have the tools,
The
the
bandwidth and the
necessary
tools.
tools. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. So, wow. Well, I really enjoyed this conversation.
So did I. I'm glad you did.
Yeah.
I hope your viewers do too.
I'm sure. I'm sure they will. So let's go ahead and get ready to close out. So if there are any final, thoughts you want to say in reference to leadership or, in anything else, go ahead and say that and let the audience know where you typically hang out. like in terms of social handles. There's a website. If you have any upcoming, I don't know, a book or a retreat,
Mm-hmm.
let us know.
Absolutely. In regards to leadership, for anybody watching, you know, leadership is really about taking action, right? Not just sitting on what you hear, but actually taking action towards it. And if you know you're a leader and you like, yeah, I need to work on my self-care, and yeah, I can be leading things a bit differently. Instead of looking at strategies and approaches and things like that, do that inner work. Because a lot of times our leadership is off because we haven't done that inner work, or we're not consistently doing it, and that's where the breakdown is. And so what I see in leadership, a lot of times we're looking outside of ourselves, but we don't look within to see, okay, how could I have handled that differently, and why did I handle it like that? So that means do some inner work. You realize it could be better. I'm getting some complaints, or I'm getting some looks, or people staring at me. They may not be complaining because they're scared of me. They want to say something, but they're not. It's time to do some inner work to see what's going on.
Mm, okay.
And in terms of where to find me, listen, I am Googleicious. I am very easy to find. I am the only Avalaura, Avalaura. You can go to avalaura.com. You have all my social media handles. You can get on my mailing list. You can join me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn. I'm on all the things. So wherever your favorite place to hang out is, join me. You can DM me, say, hey, I saw you. Shout me out, let me know. And I always have events and things coming up, which is definitely why you want to be on my mailing list. Right now, I'm kind of in my Girl Live Your Effing Life movement. I wrote a self-love journal last year, and I've had a series of brunches and really, starting journaling communities for women. So actually, you can get your copy of Girl Live Your Effing Life. It's a self-love um, guided journal, and it just, for those of us, we got enough going on, we know we need something but we're not doing it. You just turn the page and you just answer the questions and you do the exercises. You don't have to think, you just do it. Like, that's a
Okay.
lot of times what we need is like, when you got to think about something to do, you're not going to do it, but if it's right there, you'll just do it. That's what it's for. And it's really meant to be done in community with other women as well. It's just a really good thing to be able to share that back and forth. And there are prompts about self-care and journaling and forgiveness and leadership and all of these things that we've been talking about. And I also have a Reiki and Morocco retreat. Reiki is one of my favorite holistic modalities, particularly combined with therapy and with coaching, because it's really all about getting the traumas and the things that we store in our bodies up and out of our system.
Okay.
And so it's a really nice complement to a lot of other healing modalities that you're already doing, just kind of getting that gunk up and out, balancing out your system so you're in harmony, but also allowing you to relax, because most of us don't know how to relax and we don't take time out to relax. And the beautiful thing about Reiki is you can learn how to do it yourself. So in the Morocco retreat, I actually teach you certifying Reiki 1, 2 in the master's level, and you get to be in Morocco. Like,
Okay.
how amazing is that? So it's a wonderful retreat. We went last year. We had an amazing time. And so we're doing it again this year as well in November.
All right. That is awesome. Okay. Well, thank you so much. This has been so much fun. I've enjoyed you.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
And I like that. Would you say Googleicious? You said I'm
Yes, ma'am.
Googleicious.
That's listen, my mom, that's one thing she gave me, okay? My name is my name. There's nobody else with it. So
Have you ever asked put your name in Chat GPT and see what comes up? I say who
I
is
haven't.
yeah.
I know there's a company, I think it's like a tax company or a tech company or something. It's
Okay.
Avalaura. So it's missing the U,
Okay.
but not like my name. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. And that concludes this episode of the Born to Lead docuseries. If you are interested in being interviewed, then definitely just look me up. Let's have a conversation and let's make it happen. I am typically, or my two main social media platforms are LinkedIn and Facebook. More so LinkedIn, but you can find me on Facebook as well. And I'm under my full name, Dr. Jacqueline Kaba-Harrison. If you want to reach out to me, you can, send me a DM or email me at realizing your potential. The number is 123.com. My website is still under construction, but hopefully that won't be the case soon. So stay tuned for that. And I also want to share that please, tell a friend if you have not downloaded the Realizing Your Potential TV app yet, then you can go to Roku, Amazon Fire TV, or Apple TV. We're on those streaming platforms. The app is free. You can download the app, check out this episode, all of the other episodes from the Born to Lead docuseries, as well as other content that's on the network. Very easy to do. Search Realizing Your Potential TV, or it'll either be Realizing Your Potential or Realizing Your Potential TV, and you can find it that way. We are also on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And the last two is we are in your for your mobile. We're on in the or we have an Android app as well as an iOS app. So no excuse. Go ahead, download it and tell a friend, okay? And continue to join us, continue to support. Thank you so much. And until next time, everyone be well.